Welcome to Rambam and Death. Today we'll be discussing the Rambam Hilchot Tumah Meis, Perek Daled, Halacha Hey. There's a halacha that if something is the size of a kazayas and someone who's tamei touches it, it becomes tamei. It has to be a kazayas. What happens if kazayas min hames shulchatchei? Someone took the size of an olive from a corpse and cut it l'chalakim into different pieces. So each piece is, of course, less than a kazayas. But what happened afterwards, v'rididei, he then flattened it, v'davkei, and he pasted it together, joined them together. So now it's like one piece. Mitamei ba'ayil or b'masa. It can become tamei ba'ayil if you're under the same roof, because you're under the same roof of the whole thing. And also, b'masa, if you carried it, you're carrying the whole thing. However, but if you touch part of it, it doesn't become tamei, even though the whole piece has a kazayas. Why is that? Even though he joined the pieces together and it becomes one piece, and because the halacha is she'ein chiburei adam chibur, when a person artificially puts two things together, it's not considered to be a true connection, and therefore every time you touch a part of it, you may be touching a part that's less than a kazayas. So the question is asked: there's a halacha in Hilchos Tumah in Siman Kuf Samafes that if you have a piece of bread, a loaf of bread, that ideally we make a motzi, you should make it on a shalem, and a whole piece of bread, but the piece of bread was cut into two parts, and you want to make hamotzi on a davar shalem, especially on Shabbos when you need lechem mishnah, each one has to be whole. So the halacha is that if you have nothing else, you can take a stick or something that's not muktzeh if it's Shabbos, and you can stick them together, so binding them together. So the question is asked, but that's chiburei adam, that's something done artificially by a person. So why, when it comes to tumah v'tara, we say that it's not considered to be joined together as one entity? When it comes to lechem sholem, a whole loaf of bread, it is considered. So is a Sefer Vayaan David from a contemporary Pesach who makes the following distinction, a very clear distinction. When do we say that chiburei adam ain't chibur, that this attachment, this artificial attachment is not called a chibur? That's when the thing is initially whole. That's its natural state. Now you change the natural state and you want to create a new entity that should be considered as one. No, it's not as one because you divide it into two. Masha'enkin, something that from the very beginning was made by a person, it was joined by a person, and then it loses that connection, then you could reconnect it. That's why that answers the question. They have a garment. A garment is woven by a person. It's not one piece naturally, it's by a person. Or a kelia, a utensil that was made by taking different components and putting them together. And how do they become tamei? If you say chiburi adam is not a chibur, then how does it become tamei? And the answer is, it's a very big distinction. If something was chatchila b'dei shemayim, naturally one piece, and then you try to separate it and then bring it together again, b'dei adam, artificially, that doesn't count, because the natural state of it is not to be connected b'dei adam. It's a natural unity. Masha'enkein, when you're taking something that was l'chatchila made by human intervention, by humans putting together different components to make one thing one, then even though it separates later, you can put it together, it could become a chibur. Therefore, when it comes to the case of tumah over here, we're talking about a corpse. The corpse is one thing, and you took it and you split it in half, and you want to put it together, you can't change the status of it, that it's now divided into two or more. Masha'enkin, when it comes to lechem l'chatchila is made by people. People put together the ingredients, the flour, the water. It's chiburi adam. It's made artificially through human endeavor. And therefore, even though it becomes separated, you can always reconnect it by the same technique, you could say, that the bread was made in the first place, you bring them together. So the halacha taka is that ideally it is compared to tumah. The Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch Chelik Aleph, Siman Kuf Samach Ches Siv Gimel says, if you have no lechem shalom, then you could do it this way. But if you do have lechem shalom, you shouldn't rely on it, because it could be it's the same as tumah. And what is the logic over there? Because as long as it's not in its natural state, then putting it together artificially doesn't count. So even though bread is naturally put together by humans, but once it's put together, that is its natural state. And once it's its natural state, you can't then do something artificial to bring it together. It's not the same togetherness that it was l'chatchila. That could be the svara of the machmirim. But the hakula is based on the fact that the only time you say that a chibur adam is not a chibur, that's when l'chatchila it was a natural connection. And then you want to recreate a natural connection. You can't do that. Human endeavor doesn't have the same status as something that's done naturally. But if it's done artificially in the first place, then we don't care how it's done artificially, as long as it's artificially done is considered to be its natural state. You can always bring it together again.